On date of tariff imposition, I have decided to impose a 10% tariff on a wide range of Chinese goods. This decision comes after much deliberation and consideration of the ongoing trade imbalance between our two nations. We believe this step is necessary to protect American industries and jobs.
Well, folks, it finally happened. The much-anticipated tariffs have been officially announced, sending shockwaves through the global economy. Remember all that talk about trade wars and tariffs? The debates, the predictions, the endless news cycles? It's no longer just talk, it's reality now. And it's affecting everything from international relations to the price of everyday goods. The kind that makes economists nervously adjust their glasses and mutter about the Great Depression? Yes, those very same economists are now scrambling to predict the long-term impacts of these tariffs. They're poring over charts, analyzing data, and trying to forecast what this means for the global economy. Yeah, we're knee-deep in it now. The trade war is no longer a distant threat, it's here, and it's affecting businesses and consumers alike. Shipping containers are piling up at ports, and traders on the floor are more anxious than ever. That's right, 10% extra on everything from phone chargers to those tiny umbrellas that go in your cocktails. Everyday items that we often take for granted are now subject to higher prices, and consumers are starting to feel the pinch. Because nothing says economic dominance like making miniature cocktail umbrellas more expensive. It's a small but telling example of how these tariffs are reaching into every corner of our lives, even the most unexpected ones. Now you might be thinking, John, why? Why would the administration take such a drastic step? What's the end game here? Why would he do this? The reasons are complex and multifaceted, involving not just economic considerations, but also political and strategic ones. Well, the official reason, the one they printed on the fancy White House stationery, is fentanyl. This potent synthetic opioid has been a scourge on American communities, leading to countless deaths and widespread addiction. See, China is a major source of fentanyl, the incredibly potent synthetic opioid that's been ravaging communities across America. The administration believes that by imposing these tariffs, they can pressure China into taking more stringent measures to control the production and export of fentanyl. And the administration argues that these tariffs are a way to pressure China into cracking down on fentanyl production and trafficking. They see it as a necessary step to protect American lives and curb the opioid crisis. But whether this strategy will work remains to be seen. The stakes are high, and the outcomes are uncertain. What is clear, however, is that we are in uncharted territory, and the ripple effects of these tariffs will be felt for a long time to come. Now let's be clear, the fentanyl crisis is very real and very, very terrifying. It's a silent killer that has infiltrated communities across the nation, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Families are torn apart, lives are lost, and the healthcare system is overwhelmed. It's a public health emergency, no doubt. Emergency rooms are flooded with overdose cases, and healthcare professionals are stretched thin, trying to manage the fallout. The crisis has sparked protests and calls for urgent action from all corners of society. But using tariffs as a tool to combat a drug epidemic, that's a controversial and highly debated approach. Tariffs are typically used to address trade imbalances or protect domestic industries, not to tackle complex public health issues. That's like trying to perform open-heart surgery with a rusty spork. It's an analogy that highlights the inefficiency and potential harm of such a strategy. The tools at our disposal need to be precise and effective, not blunt and potentially damaging. It's messy, it's imprecise, and it's probably going to cause a whole lot of unintended damage. The economic repercussions could be significant, affecting businesses and consumers alike. The chaos in the surgery room is a metaphor for the potential fallout in the economy. The problem is, fentanyl production is a complex issue, deeply intertwined with poverty, lack of opportunity, and systemic issues in the regions where it is produced. It's not just about the factories, it's about the socio-economic conditions that drive people to engage in this dangerous trade. And frankly, a whole lot of demand from us, the United States. Our own consumption patterns fuel this crisis. The demand for fentanyl and other opioids is a significant part of the problem, and addressing it requires a multifaceted approach. And slapping a tariff on Chinese imports isn't going to magically erase the demand for fentanyl. The demand is driven by addiction, pain management issues, and a host of other factors that tariffs simply cannot address. Nor is it likely to dismantle the sophisticated criminal networks that traffic it. These networks are highly adaptable and resilient, often finding new ways to circumvent law enforcement efforts. A comprehensive strategy is needed, one that includes international cooperation, robust law enforcement, and effective addiction treatment programs. But hey, maybe the tariffs will work, right? Maybe China will fold like a cheap suit and we'll all be sipping Mai Tais with our perfectly priced cocktail umbrellas. Well, here's the thing about trade wars. They're like a game of chicken played with the global economy, and nobody wins, especially not American consumers. See, those tariffs? They don't come out of some magical tariff fund. They get passed down to importers who then pass them down to you, the consumer, in the form of higher prices. So, get ready to shell out some extra bucks for your next smartphone, your kids' new sneakers, or, God forbid, those essential miniature cocktail umbrellas. Now, China isn't exactly known for its love of losing, so naturally they retaliated, and they hit us where it hurts: agriculture. China slapped tariffs on a whole bunch of American agricultural products, including soybeans, the backbone of many American farms. Suddenly, American farmers, many already struggling with low commodity prices and rising debt, found themselves caught in the crossfire of this trade war. Their livelihoods, their futures, hanging in the balance as the two economic superpowers duked it out. Section 5. Global markets shudder whispers of a trade war. The mere mention of a trade war sends shivers down the spines of investors and economists alike. It's like a dark cloud looming over the global economy, threatening to unleash a storm of uncertainty and instability. The ripples from this economic squabble didn't stop at the water's edge. They spread far and wide, affecting every corner of the globe. From bustling ports to quiet rural towns, the impact was felt everywhere. Oh no, folks, this thing went global. It wasn't just a local issue. It became a worldwide phenomenon. News outlets from Tokyo to London were buzzing with updates, and everyone was on edge. Stock markets around the world took a nosedive. The numbers on the ticker plummeted, and the once bustling trading floors turned into scenes of chaos and despair. Investors watched in horror as their portfolios shrank. Financial analysts started sweating through their suits. Meetings that were once filled with confident predictions turned into sessions of frantic calculations and desperate strategies. The pressure was palpable, and the dreaded R-word recession started getting tossed around with alarming frequency. It was on everyone's lips, from the boardrooms of multinational corporations to the living rooms of everyday families. The fear of an economic downturn was real and growing. See, the global economy is kind of like a giant game of Jenga. Each piece represents a different country, industry, or market. They all rely on each other to keep the structure standing tall and strong. You can pull out a few pieces here and there, and the tower might wobble a bit, but it stays upright. However, every piece you remove increases the risk. But start yanking out too many and the whole thing comes crashing down. It's a delicate balance, and one wrong move can lead to disaster. And a trade war between the world's two largest economies? That's like pulling out the bottom layer of blocks while wearing a blindfold and riding a unicycle. The stakes couldn't be higher. That's like yanking out the bottom layer of blocks while wearing a blindfold and riding a unicycle. It's a risky gamble, and the consequences are unpredictable and potentially catastrophic. Not exactly a recipe for stability. The uncertainty it brings can lead to panic, and panic can lead to even more instability. It's a vicious cycle that can be hard to break. Global leaders scrambled to find solutions, engaging in high-stakes negotiations and diplomatic maneuvers. The goal was to find a way to stabilize the situation and prevent further damage. Economic recovery plans were drafted, stimulus packages were announced, and financial aid was distributed in an attempt to cushion the blow. But the road to recovery was long and uncertain. Despite the challenges, there was a glimmer of hope. Business owners and communities showed resilience, working together to rebuild and adapt to the new economic landscape. The whispers of a trade war may have caused turmoil, but they also sparked a determination to overcome and thrive. Back home, the tariff battle sparked a political firestorm. Some lawmakers, mostly from the president's own party, cheered him on, praising his tough stance on China.
Others, however, weren't so thrilled. They argued that tariffs were nothing more than a tax on American consumers, that they would hurt American businesses, and that they were unlikely to address the complex issue of fentanyl trafficking.
It was a classic Washington showdown partisan gridlock, finger-pointing, and enough hot air to power a small city. So, what happens next? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The optimists, those brave souls who haven't yet succumbed to the crushing weight of despair, hope that these tariffs are just a negotiating tactic, a way to force China to the bargaining table. They envision a scenario where cooler heads prevail, where both sides reach a compromise, and where the global economy breathes a collective sigh of relief. It's a nice thought, isn't it? Like finding a $20 bill in your old jeans or discovering that your favorite band just released a surprise album. Here's the thing though, the fentanyl crisis, the trade imbalance, the geopolitical tensions, these are complex issues with no easy answers. Tariffs might offer a temporary illusion of control, a way to appear tough on China, but they're unlikely to provide a long-term solution. Addressing these challenges requires a nuanced approach, one that goes beyond simplistic trade wars and embraces diplomacy, international cooperation, and a willingness to address the root causes of these problems. So, there you have it, folks. The US and China locked in a high-stakes game of economic chicken with the fate of the global economy hanging in the balance. It's a delicate dance, a tightrope walk between leverage and disaster. And as we've seen time and time again, when it comes to international trade, the law of unintended consequences reigns supreme. So buckle up, Buttercup, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And for God's sake, somebody get those miniature cocktail umbrellas under control.